to start out, the title of my op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com is about Putin, Trump, Iran, and Netanyahu unveiling the terrifying perils of strongman rule. And, you know, I tell this story. Well, first of all, the most amazing thing about Donald Trump's trial is that it's even happening. This is something that would not happen in Hungary. It would not happen in Russia. It would not happen in Iran or Turkey or China. In those countries run by authoritarian strongmen do not see their leaders put on trial until or unless there's, you know, basically a coup. And that's not going to happen here. So it's pretty amazing. I mean, Trump has said that if he becomes president again, he's going to make sure that this kind of trial never, ever happens. He wants absolute immunity for himself and his cronies. In fact, he's going to argue that before the Supreme Court next week. I believe it's next week, April 25th. I think that's next Thursday. Thank you, Sean. And, you know, if he has his way, nobody aligned with him will ever again be prosecuted. These countries, you know, Hungary, Russia, Iran, Turkey, China, they're all run by strongmen. The men that Trump openly admires and aspires to be, as apparently does Benjamin Netanyahu. And the irony about strongman leaders is that they're generally not strong people. They use violence and rhetoric to mask their own fear and weakness. I saw the first time in my life I saw the consequences of strongman rule was in the late 70s, or maybe 1980, 79 or 80. I went into Uganda at the tail end of the war that the Tanzanians had come in and kicked out Idi Amin. And, you know, we were bringing in food and medicine to deal with the famine up in the Karamoja region. And as Idi Amin and his 30 wives and concubines were firmly and pleasantly ensconced for the rest of his life in a mansion in Saudi Arabia. But this is what authoritarian leaders do. They pillage their countries for their own benefit. They elevate their crooked oligarch buddies, and they build alliances of mutual dependence with the most powerful people in the political and business classes. You know, like Trump getting millions, billions from Russians and putting corrupt billionaires in his cabinet, you know, whose colleagues are now in turn funding his campaign, or Ivanka getting millions in patents from China, or Jared Kushner sucking up to a murderous Saudi prince and walking away with $2 billion just months later. You know, Vladimir Putin has extracted tens of billions of dollars from his country, Russia. And whenever his buddies, the Russian oligarchs, get out of line, they fall out of 13th floor, you know, 12th floor windows. Or they emigrate to Israel. It's the most common destination for Russian billionaires. Along those lines, Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu has been charged with bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. He's alleged to have given millions of dollars, billions of dollars worth of regulatory relief to an Israeli media billionaire in exchange for that media billionaire devoting all the, you know, very, very favorable media coverage to Netanyahu. And now, you know, after meeting with envoys from the UK and Germany and hearing President Biden say, just take the win, Bibi, Netanyahu this morning said basically he's reserving the option of a violent response to Iran's response to his, you know, bombing sovereign Iranian territory, their embassy or their consulate in Syria. It sure looks to me like this is just, you know, Netanyahu and Iran, both of them benefit from a war between the two of them as long as it doesn't become an all-out war. And, you know, dancing that dance is a very, very dangerous thing for the world and frankly, for Israel and Iran. So, you know, where do we go with this? Well, you know, Putin is trying to steal the resources of Ukraine. Trump wants to finish the job he started, turning America into an illiberal democracy. Iran's mullahs and Netanyahu are engaged in this symbiotic, high-stakes mutual violation of international law to hang on to power. I mean, it's been going on forever, right? And it doesn't always lead to war. I was in the Philippines years ago when Ferdinand Marcos got deposed. And he, you know, in fact, I got knocked off. I had a reservation on a Philippine Airlines plane to come back to the United States. And 5 days in a row, I showed up at the airport and got bumped off my flight because Marcos and all of his cronies were fleeing to Hawaii. The flight stopped in Hawaii on its way to Los Angeles. They just took the airline. I mean, you know, it was a state airline. But Marcos was so desperate to hang on to power, he'd had, you know, his opponent assassinated when he came back into the country. But he didn't have a big enough military to go to war with somebody. You know, unlike Iran and Russia and now Israel. So here we are. You know, we've got this conflict, and it has the potential to do some real damage. President Biden reached out to Netanyahu day before yesterday and said, please take the win, right? You know, Iran threw all these missiles and things at you. Every single one got shot out of the air. The only injury in Israel was a Bedouin girl who was injured when some debris from a rocket that had been shot down fell on her community. And I mean, that was it. And basically, you know, Netanyahu started it by bombing Iranian sovereign territory. I guarantee you, if Iran had bombed an Israeli embassy anywhere in the world, the response would have been pretty ferocious. So, you know, Netanyahu says to Iran, hey, let's have a fight. And Iran says, okay, cool, here you go. And now they're doing this dance that benefits both of them, frankly. And it concerns, I think, frankly, the rest of us. Without exception, when authoritarian leaders come to power, whether it's by election or violent overthrow, the little people suffer. Whether it's from theft or corruption or even war, or all three. I mean, this was the great lesson of the 1930s. So hopefully Israel will return to democracy soon with new elections. Ukraine will get the aid it needs to repel Putin's army. Johnson's talking about a vote on Saturday. And America will turn away from Trump's authoritarianism. And if not, if those three things don't happen, the world is in for a hell of a painful time.